we are here, you know, allomorphs. That's where I want us to stay. We are actually working with word formation. How are words formed in English, and what are those words? We looked into compounding, I suppose, last time. We discussed compounding as another way words are formed in English language. We want to look at other processes of word formation in English, clipping, and as another way of forming new words. And we'll look into those examples that we could not have time to work through. Fine. And so if you look at bullet 4, it says describe these processes. Derivation, it's important not only to say that this word has a morpheme or an affix, and then you mention or you identify the affix. It's fine. It's commendable. However, we want you to explain, take us through the process of formation of that word and explain how it all came to be the word that is the new word that it is. Take us through that process, morphological process. And we also looked at words that at face value appear to be related, yet they are unrelated. We worked through those few examples. Please remember that it's very, very important to actually explain why the words are not using the same root or are unrelated, yet they might seem to be. And also other structures, the internal structure of other words that we looked and seemed to be actually words that are formed as a result of an affix, deceive, receive, and as a result of an affix. Yet when you further analyze, you find that in fact the morpheme there on its own, it doesn't really make sense, and therefore you wouldn't attach it to the base form, or supposedly what would seem to be a base form. So we looked into those examples previously, and now we want to work on other aspects of word formation in English, as part of morphology study, so that we can see that words are formed and they are just not there as words we read in an essay, but these words are formed as a result of processes that would use affixes to change meaning of the word. Is this word because of this, and it means that, and we break these words down. We can do that, and we can even count the number of morphemes, very interesting, that are there in a word. 4 morphemes, polymorphemic words. Spoke about those concepts previously. Right. I think this is beautiful, and I think it summarizes really morphology. It gives you the overview. This slide. It's not in your guide. It's not in your prescribed book. It's not in your references, I suppose, books that we study in getting support information that helps us unlock further this unit. However, it's not there, but I think it's a lovely, lovely summary. When I put it together, I was looking at the different aspects from the different material to just have this just on one slide, showing free and bound morphemes. And this is what then came through after doing that exercise. You can take a picture of that. I think you've done that in the past. And the other thing that I wanted us to really, we spoke about polymorphemic, spurious relationship of words. We've demonstrated how that is the case. I think the file is corrupted. I'm not sure. Okay, we've done this exercise 4.4, page 53. So we said 2 types of processes to create words. We said derivation. We spoke about that already, and we also have compounding as another example. We dealt with this. In fact, this table is somewhere in your guide as well. I took it from there, just lifted it there and had all the information pasted on this slide. So it's nothing new. What about clipping? As the word says, a clipper, it means something is being cut. And in the case of a word that is formed as a result of clipping, we know that the word then is shortened, right? Professor, prof. The new word is prof. These are words that are Elizabeth, Liz, right? Catherine, Kathy. These are words that are there, but informal. It's This is not formal writing. We use this in conversational contexts. We use that in informal texts. These clipped words. Sometimes these words we apply clipping. In applying clipping, we get to acronyms. All right, shortened words or abbreviated form of words. Right. Now, can you now identify that this word that you are working with in the exam is a word as a result of derivation, or is it a word as a result of formed as a result of clipping? Is it a word formed as a result of compounding? Now, the onus is on you to prove it. You see, if you say it's compounding, imagine it's blackberry, okay, or other words that may appear to be like compound words which are not compound words, or they are indeed compound words. And you are given that, and they ask you to explain how this word has been formed. And you need to then check the word and see if it was formed as a result of derivation, as a result of compounding, as a result of clipping. And these are the morphological processes. So they have to be learned individually so that you are able to apply. And you'll be asked about inflections. What new meaning is created by the attachment to the word or root faith? What new meaning does this bound morpheme create? And then you explain the new meaning that the word now assumes as a result of that little word, rather letter, or that morpheme that has been attached to the base form or to the root. So these are ways that you will be assessed, where you have to explain the morphological processes, explain the morphological processes that are there, and also maybe even identify the morphemes. How many morphemes are there in the word faithful, for instance, or how many morphemes are in the word unfaithful, and then show the affixes and show the root or the base form in the word unfaithful. So you sort of like break it down to the point where you are having the base form or root, and you say this part is the base and the rest are actually morphemes that are, or rather bound morphemes that are attached to the base form. So you actually break down a word to that point. Fine. So here are the clippings. So you need to actually learn all of these examples. And as you are preparing for exams, I'm trying to say to you, in this unit, this is how you go about it. Of course, you need to learn the inflections, but once you are done with the inflections, then you are left with derivation. You're left with the word formation processes. Indeed, you'd be, of course, all of that is morphology. All of that is consisting in free and bound morphemes. But then working with bound morphemes, you then have to think. Derivation is one way of forming words. Clipping are also examples of new words that are formed. And you move on. Back formation, right? Where you, the word, you actually reverse the initial process, right? You explain that this word is actually reversed to the original or to the base form, and we see there the base form, or the base form is enthused, and the affix was zm, right? Which was ism, I think, yes, which was attached to enthuse. So you're actually going back to the base form of the word, right, by de-affixing the derivational morpheme. In other words, by de-affixing, you're actually removing the affixes. so that you are left with the base form. And so by so doing, you are doing what? The process called back formation, right? So you can move backward, you can move forward or backward to where you started, right? That's with the base form. So you're actually moving back to the base form by back formation. Okay, right. So that's another way you can learn the examples. There they are. These ones are ones that students can work with. But then I really want us to get to the other one, blending. You know, a blender, what it does is when you put fruit or fruits in a blender, you sort of mix everything into one. So similarly with blended words or blendings, what you're doing is you seemingly unrelated words are used together to form one word. I mean, think of tenderpreneurs. It's a new word. It's a blending. Tenderpreneurs. All right. As a result of tender. Remember, tender is used is a government word used in government, especially the finance department, where tenders are published and people can then apply, or is it apply, or yes, for the tender. Yeah, and so there's quite a number of companies that can do, depending on the state. So you have tender system used by government. Even business, I suppose, they can do that, outsource the work to companies that are capable of delivering the services. So you have a tender. An entrepreneur is the businessman or woman, right, or person. So you have tenderpreneur and tender. Excuse me, you have entrepreneur and tender. So what you're doing, you want to explain a new phenomenon in the country. And it's really very unique to South Africa, because I do not think in countries such as Angola, in countries such as Australia, you would find a word like that in their dictionary. You may not, but it might be there because it has its origin from South Africa, where people are business people because they happen to gain access to tenders. So you have those people who new business people described as tenderpreneurs, a combination of tenders and entrepreneur. So you have a one word there, and the one word that is formed, or new word that is formed, or the blending that is formed, is tenderpreneur. We see the same with breakfast and lunch, where you have a new word formed as a result of blending. Brunch, motor and hotel. You have motel. You have electronic and mail. You have email. So you can come up with quite a number of other examples. But I'm just thinking also out loud in terms of examination processes where you are asked to explain or describe the process, and you are given branch. All right, you might even think this is a spelling error. It was supposed to be branch, but now it's branch. And so you think, okay, no, it's spelling error. This is just spelling error. No, you need to actually say that this could be potentially the way to describe how we came to branch, how motel was formed, how tenderpreneurs, I've given as an example, was formed. These are blendings. Okay, it's another word formation process that we have. What about conversion? And I think this is not in your guide, but it is another way that words are, but it's not a new word as such. However, the word is used in a different form. All right, where conversion is used, I suppose you might, in previous examinations, they would assess conversion as a process. Where conversion is used, look at the example. The girls butter their bread. Okay, let me do this. Girls butter their bread Each time they eat white bread, they butter. Now the word butter there is a what? It's a noun, isn't it? It is. We know butter to be a noun, but then it is used here. Sorry, I think something happened. This is supposed to read butter here. Butter. The girls butter. Right? I don't know. There has been something there which I can't explain. The girls butter their bread each time they eat white bread. So the word butter here has been used in a different form. This conversion is called conversion. So explain the usage of the word butter in the sentence above. Okay, as a question. And you have to, and this is the example. I used to think of other examples, but the girls butter their bread. Now that we know butter not to be a verb, but a noun. Now it is used as a verb. And so you explain that as conversion where the word is used in a different form. And I do understand the meaning of girls butter their bread each time they eat white bread. I do understand what that means. So you can actually also work with that. So I've mentioned all of them: back formation, blending, compounding, diversion. Popular ones are compounding and derivation. Those are very popular ones, but this does not exclude the other ways that new words are created, like conversion and the other ones that we have mentioned. So you have those ways. So there isn't any word that you see in our word study, in our study of morphology, that it's just a standalone and it cannot be explained. It has to be explained. If it's a lexical, we have to say this is a lexical morpheme. This is a bound morpheme. We have to explain every little unit of morpheme in a way, and we explain. If it's prof, we know what that is in English studies. We know everything that is there as a word. We are able to explain is, was, had. All right, what are these? These are which examples of morphemes are these? Had, have. Which examples of morphemes are those? All right, we've spoken in the past about different types of free morphemes. We said there's lexical morphemes, and I think we also spoke about grammatical morphemes, and they are functional words such as has, had, and all of those. You know, the auxiliaries are your examples, as well as your conjunctions are your examples. They are all free morphemes, right? The notes do show all of them. But you see, and we can describe it. We can describe is. Asks, we can describe it and say this is what is actually happening with all the words. Pandemonium, we can explain it. We can identify the morphemes if needs be, and many others. Department, wallet. We can explain the processes involved, and we sort of like now work with a word at that level of morphology, study of how this word is formed and what other smaller units are there and what meaning do these smaller units contribute in the formation of the new word. So that's what we're doing actually in this section, or rather unit, morphology. Okay, first thing that we need to do is to define it. What is morphology? And be able to explain, provide accurate definition of morphology. This is the part that I really want us to get to. And I worry about what I see on the screen when I see that I can't see all the things that I worked so hard putting together here. I don't know what happened to this slide. I don't know what happened to this slide. Okay. But anyway, we're going to work with it regardless. Okay, so I'm reading right here at the top. It says an allomorph. Very interesting, isn't it? This is very, very interesting because when I hear this, it says allomorph. An allomorph is a single morpheme, and I think you've familiarized yourself with this already. Single morpheme with more than one phonological realization. That's the definition of allomorph. What does that mean? To put it simply, we say an allomorph is a morpheme that has different pronunciation, or a single morpheme with different pronunciations. For instance, the morpheme the S morpheme, it sounds differently in different plural forms. Why? It is not, you see, it's a morpheme, but what type of morpheme is it? It's an allomorph. Why do we call it an allomorph? Why is it called, not me? Why is it called an allomorph? Because it has it's more than one sound to it. It's an allomorph because it has more than one sound. The S there has more than one sound. But why? The question is why? Why does it have more than one phonological realization, more than one pronunciation? Isn't it supposed to be just one? If it's cars, it should be cars. All words that use the S morpheme should sound the same. It should be pronounced, the S should be pronounced same, or same way, in the same way, across all the different words of English that use plural forms. But it's not the case. And we want to know why the sounds differ from one word to the other. Okay? Desks doesn't sound the same as cars. Neither does it sound the same as buses. Why? So you realize the S morpheme, it's an allomorph because, excuse me, the S morpheme is an allomorph because it has more than one phonological realization. And look at these allomorphs there. These are the allomorphs of the morpheme S. These are the different sound realization, phonological realization of the S morpheme in plurals. This is just to start. Now, how are you assessed in the exam? This is very interesting because the way this module has been put together is such that you don't leave anything out. It's such that you want to get right from the root up to the highest point of language study, English language study. It's what it is about. I mean, who would have cared really about the plurals? But the sound itself makes that difference, that it has to be analyzed. You know, the sound morpheme S has to be further analyzed. Why the difference in pronunciation? Now, what do we name it? What do we call it? And so they would call it different things, but then why is it sounding differently in this word and not in that word? See, we need to actually be able to say this sounds this because of these reasons. And here are the reasons. Okay. Here are the reasons. Okay. Fine. Let's look at the plural allomorphs. Z, s. Those are the three plural allomorphs. Okay. Right. Now, bush, bush, bushes, bushes. Judge, judges, is judges. Why? Why does the is at the end show up? All right. Peach, peaches, 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 buzzes, fuses. And it's exactly like that. It sounds exactly like is at the end. So it's an allomorph there. Fine. Now, what do we see in the middle column? We see the z allomorph, dogs. friends, pens, seas, cars. And the last column, cats, desks, taps. Now, explain the difference, the explanation of the difference. Why the different sounds of or pronunciation of the S morphemes in plural, in words that use the plural morpheme S. Now, the explanation is here, and it says here with the is. Now, see, this is just lifted from your guide. It's because these sounds, nouns which end in sh, j, s, z, ch sounds. These sounds are fricatives, isn't it? And we remember the fricatives. The fricative, there's a frication when the consonant sound is when the air is released through the mouth, it is released with the frication when this sound is made, when these consonant sounds are made. Sh, j, s, z. So there's a frication of sorts, or friction of sorts. That is why the manner of articulation of these consonant sound is described as fricative, because there is a friction that occurs when the air is released through the mouth, and thus they are fricatives. Now, when a word, a noun, ends with a fricative, then is morpheme, is allomorph, shows up. Okay, fine. That's the first explanation of the is. Think about it this way. If you are going to give the reasons, that's exactly what you should do. These are the reasons you should give. So, how do I know this? Of course, I must say this word out, and I say it's okay. Bushes, judges. So the allomorph is realized. But how? What leads to that? Is the consonant sound, the fricative consonant sound at the end of that noun that actually influences, that leads to the is. It could be any word that ends with these fricatives, that they would all assume in the plural these allomorphs. You see, this allomorph rather in the plural. So you have to provide this as your reasoning. Shows up because these nouns, they end in a fricative, and these are the examples of fricatives. Remember the fricatives from our phonetics study. So they are coming back again here with allomorphs. What about the S in dogs, friends? Sounds like a z at the end. Why? Why the z at the end in the plural? So you explain it by saying these are nouns that end in g, d, n, r. So what are they? They are voiced. So meaning, if a noun ends with a voiced g, by the way, we said voiced sounds. Voiced sounds are sounds when they are articulated, there is a vibration of the vocal cords. So you hold on to your vocal cords and you will be able to sense that vibration. When you say g, 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 there is indeed a vibration. De, there is. There is a vibration. You just feel it with your fingers. The vocal cords are vibrating. The vocal cords are vibrating. So the words end with, rather, in a voiced sound. Like the examples that I have. Pen, seed, these are de, g, r, are all voiced sounds. And so this then influenced the pronunciation of the morpheme, the plural morpheme s, in words that end in voiced sounds, such as the ones that I have given as examples. Okay? Bit complex, but we realize then what influences, what leads to these variations in pronouncing the plural s in different words. Why is cars not the same as desks? The s ending there, the plural inflection there is sounding different. Why? So we explain it by giving the reasons that we are outlining, right? Desks is pronounced as sound, is pronounced as an S sound, and I've lost this. I'm trying to get back. Okay, fine. So we have cats, desks. Why? Here is the reason. The reason is that it is because they are voiceless. They end, the nouns, they end in voiceless consonant sounds. Voiceless. We know, again, to test if they are voiced or voiceless, we just put our hand on the vocal cords and articulate the consonant sound, or say the consonant sound. So I'm saying te, 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 and I'm not sensing or feeling any vibration of the vocal cords. I showed you the vocal cords previously, and how to feel the vibration. And pe, 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 no vibration. Ke, ke, no, th, 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 no vibration. Moths, no vibration. So if it's no vibration, consonant sound, voiceless consonant sound, at the end of the noun, then the plural would be pronounced as in desks, steps. It's not z or is. No, it's s as we know it, as we know it, you know. So those are the variations, and we need to explain why these things are happening like that. And I think this would really help big time in terms of explaining the phonological differences in the plural morpheme s. Okay, in the plural morpheme s. So that's how you do it. Voiced, voiceless, fricatives. What about the other allomorphs besides the plural? We have other allomorphs. Let's get to other examples of allomorphs besides the plural. Okay, what about the other allomorphs? Possessive and third person singular allomorphs. Let's look at those. Let's start with the possessives. Remember, possession is shown by that little apostrophe and the S after. Look at it. You see the apostrophe that I'm talking about and the S. This is to show possession. And this is also to show possession. This is to show possession. Okay. Fine. Now, right, this possessive, rather possessives, they are also pronounced differently. Okay. They are also pronounced differently. Look at the difference there. This, John's, Philip's, best coat, John's, John's car. Philip's fiancé. Right. Now they behave in a similar way as plurals. You see? They behave in a similar way. So if we are to explain possessives, we would follow the same logic applied in plurals. For instance, is shows up where the noun ends in s or s or a fricative. All right. Now, z shows up if the noun ends in what? A voiced n. And it might not be just the voiced n. It could also be the voiced ge or de. Let's take David. All right. So I just want us to be careful that we do not just use the examples that are used in the illustration here. So anything else that ends in a fricative sound, any other name or noun that ends in a fricative, as in the example given here, it will then have the is sound, the plural, rather the morpheme s will sound as is, right, at the end. And if it's a voiced sound n or David's car. Okay, so it's z because of the ending there, which is voiced, and you can then generalize this to other voiced sounds. You generalize it to other voiced consonant sound. You generalize it to other fricatives. Okay, you generalize it to other voiceless stops. Right, voiceless stops. Very important to see that here you have a stop, which is very, very important. Shows up where nouns end in a p. P is a stop, and it's voiceless. P. You go to the chart, okay, the consonant sound chart. It will show you voiceless stops. There are a few examples. So if it's a noun that ends in a voiceless stop, then you have the S sound at the end of the noun. Fine. So these are the ways that the S in plural or in possessives sound differently. We write it as S at the end, but when we pronounce it differently, depending on the consonant sound, that word ends in. If it's a fricative, if it's voiced or voiceless, it will influence the sound thereof of that morpheme, the S morpheme. Okay, what about the third person singular? Okay, now look at here. Kiss, it's a fricative. There is a fricative, definitely is a fricative. Kiss is and again you generalize, you know. By the way, this is a verb. Kiss is a verb. Dig is a verb. Stop is a verb, used as a verb. Now, this applies to verbs. Let's look at the third person singular, and we know that third person singular use the S morpheme. Third person always use the S morpheme. Third person use the S morpheme, and so, but the phonological realization differ depending on the consonant sound that the word or the verb ends in. If it's a fricative S, still the same applies. You know, kisses, right? Is the is allomorph applies here because of the fricative S at the end of kiss. And what about dick, g. You need to only realize this. The sound that the word, it could be a noun, it could be a verb, the sound that it ends in is very important in determining the allomorph that word would use. Very, very important. Is it voiced sound that it ends in, or is it a voiceless, or is it a fricative? Those are the key. And then that then explains the variations in pronunciation. So we then have another important example. You know, look at that. It says third person singular will behave in a similar way as plurals. Possessives will behave similar way as plurals. Third person singular will behave similar way as plurals. And we gave reasons why the plurals behaved in the way that they behaved, and the reasons apply across, even with possessives or possessives or with third person singular. Fine. So here are the reasons. Here are the reasons. Shows up, is shows up where the noun, it shouldn't be a noun. Where the verb, shouldn't be this is my mistake. It should be a verb because we're dealing with third person singular. Third person verb. Third person verb. We're looking at the verb that shows third person. So it always ends with an S. Runs, talks, plays, and all of those many other examples. Those are verbs. So you see here, it says nouns, 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 supposed to be verbs. So as shows up where verbs end in s, which is a fricative. Kisses, 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 kisses. Boy digs. Now g is voice. This is g. If it's talk, k is voiceless. So it won't be talks. It will be talks. Talks about this. Because k, the letter k, there's no vibration of vocal cords when you pronounce k. So because of that, then it makes it voiceless. And let's look at stops. Stops is another example. It's voiceless. P is voiceless. Then we have the S sounding S in it, stops at the end of the third person singular verb stop, rather stops. Okay, I hope you follow. And what about an exercise, a bit of an exercise? Should we take the other morphemes, or rather allomorphs, before an exercise? Let me check. We need an exercise. Yep, oh, there we go. We have one. Right, 3 marks. This is an easy one. Here you don't need to explain, but you will need to explain. This was taken from a previous year's question paper. I'm not sure which year. It could be 2018. But study the words in the chart below and then answer the questions that follow. The set of words in the lists A, B, and C, sets of words, are in their plural forms. So which morpheme, which allomorph is tested here? The plural S. Each set represents the 3 different ways in which the sound S is pronounced. 3 different ways in which the S is pronounced. These are S, Z, Z. Match the appropriate S sound to the sets A, B, and C. Okay, now that's one way. Fortunately, it's 3 marks, and the students are not asked to say p, p, as in think, is voiceless or voiced. They're not asked to go in that direction. But does that preclude us from being asked to go in that direction? It doesn't at all. This is just to show you one way that you possibly can be assessed on this. And the assessor could actually go in all directions, requiring that students assess, rather explain for more than just 3 marks, maybe 6 marks when you give those other meanings that are attached to the allomorph, the plural allomorph. Okay, so what could be the answer, the possible answer for 3 marks? You're just matching, all right? These are, so you're matching the allomorphs with the words, rather the sets that are using that sound, right? Or that are using that allomorph at the end. So I have wicks, cups, pets, parts, sorry, pets, parts. So this set seems to me to be using the allomorphs, the very first one, this one. So I have matched correctly. I have matched the S or the allomorph with the A set of words. What about the B set? Slices, bridges, judges. So to me, it sounds as the is allomorph. So I match that with B column. What about cats, dogs, fans? It's obviously the Z sound at the end. So I've matched it correctly. Therefore, I get full 3 marks. Easy one. But here is another important consideration. If they add that once you have matched, explain why. Why the sounds, the allomorphs differ in A, B, and C. Explain. You are then required to basically provide the explanations regarding the voiced, voiceless, and fricatives. That's where you would go to get maybe further 3 marks, to have 6 marks allocated to the student, suppose they provide relevant explanations. So 6 marks more or less if you have something like that. Okay, I hope you get it. Right, we getting back to allomorphs. We have here the morpheme D and different phonological realization of the D past tense morpheme. Why not just one? Look, cold, talked, the t and the d are not the same, and amazingly they are spelled exactly the same way. There's ed at the end, but interestingly the pronunciation is different. What influences the difference, what makes the difference, is again can be explained by considering the consonant sound that the word ends in, or the verb ends in. Let's look at this one. The word there, rather the consonant sound is right? And here the consonant sound is ke. Here the consonant sound is de. So does this then alter the pronunciation of the morpheme de? It does. It does influence it because of that last consonant sound. Is it fricative? Is it voiceless? Is it voiced? Those kind of considerations are very important. So we're going back to the consonant sound chart, unit, I think 3, where we get help that helps us to at least be able to know whether this is voiced or voiceless, etc., whether it is affricative or not. Let's look at the first column here. Wish, talk, preach. Now, the allomorph is te in wished, kissed, talked, preached. The allomorph there is te. It's not de. You see, we don't say preached, preached, not preached, preached, right? So now, why? Same. Is it the same? No, slightly different. I suppose it's the same. Look at the way you explained the plurals, the possessives, and the way you explained the third person singular. Can we use the same logic here or reasoning here? We have the te allomorph across these words that end in the voiceless sounds, voiceless consonant sounds. Sh, s, k, ch. So, te shows up. Why? Because of the influence of the last consonant sound in the word. Right. What about the de? I think we're generalizing here now. We start overgeneralizing. Where there is a difference, we'll notice and say, here we watch out. But so far, we are able to say what is happening on the left it seems to be happening on the right. Okay, let's look at de, allomorph de. So wave, waved. So it's not waved. It's waved. So the ed there, or the de, rather the ed, the de, the de morpheme there sounds differently when used in wave, bathe, play, rune. So why? What is the difference? So we have waved, bathed, played, ruined. Fine. So explanation of the difference, right? De shows up at the end if the word end in sounds that are voiced. V, 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 the. Excuse me. The. Yeah. What will help to verify, establish veracity, is when you have the table here next to you, you work with this and you check, is this indeed voiceless or voiced? You find that it does correspond, and when it does correspond, we're able to say, okay, so it means if the verb ends in a word, in a sound that is voiced, the de shows up at the end of the word when it's in the plural, rather when it's in the past tense. So we apply the same way of doing it to the other category here. We have want, wanted, wait, waited. The allomorphs are not sounding the same. All of them, they do not sound the same. Hoot, hooted, planted. Okay, so the sound there, it's because of the stop sounds at the end. So it seems so far what is happening on the left is really showing to be what is happening on the right with regard to explaining why. So the voicing is important, and also the difference that I'm seeing is that here we do not have the fricatives as such, but we are determining it by whether it's voiced or voiceless, and also the stop. And the stop is also evident in the other case that we have actually mentioned. All right, the stop, it's also evident in this, the third person singular. There you have stop, voiceless stop. And you do see that again, stop for the AD, the at in wanted, waited, etc. So you see the differences there as well. So these are allomorphs because there is more than one phonological realization. In other words, more than one pronunciation of the same allomorph, of the same morpheme, be it plural, be it possessive, be it past tense morpheme. But when it is pronounced in different words, it then varies depending on the consonant sound that the word ends in. That influences the morpheme, and it's then sounding differently. Because of that, they are allomorphs, because of the sound that differs depending on the word, that then they are called allomorphs. Just to explain what allomorphs, how they work. And it's a 6-7 mark kind of a question. So understanding it is very important. We also have an example. Now, I want us to do in closing this exercise, just to really end this unit and move quickly to unit 5. And what really comforts my heart is that we are really getting into unit 5. Activity 4.6 is on page 58 and 59. Let's do it. Let's do that one. I need you to go there in your guide. And there's also activity, we want to do them together, 4.6 and 4.7. So let's go straight to this activity in closing this section. So this is what we are doing. The possible exam question 4.6. You list the morpheme as well as the allomorphs. The possible exam question. And identify and name the type of morpheme. Is it past? Is it plural? Is it possessive? Is it third person singular? And then you explain. You get that. So it's 1, 2, 3, 4 marks, in fact. Koketso, Scott? Yes, your hand is up. Do you have an answer for us, please? We're working with stomach.
Yeah, yes. I'm thinking, I'm not sure. I'm thinking it's plural allomorph, and it's the sounds that are voiceless at the end.
Okay, which sound is voiceless?
Yeah, I don't know how to say it out loud.
Okay, I understand. But then the morpheme, okay, the consonant sound which is voiceless, which one in the word stomach is voiceless?
The k.
Good,
the k.
good. The k. Then that's your explanation. And your explanation is, it is stomachs. The S is sounding as s because of the k, which is voiceless. That's your reasoning. That's your explanation.
Okay, thank you.
All right. I wanted to confirm what I'm saying. That this would be your explanation, Koketso. I really appreciate your contribution, Koketso, by the way. It's very, very, I want you to confirm and to say, yes, this is how I say it. But thank you for that.
Yeah.
Thank you for that.
That's how I see it.
Okay. That's how you say it. And it's plural. You said it is plural. That is correct. And you said it's the S allomorph, just the S at the end. And you also say is in explaining it. Pardon?
That is voiceless.
That is voiceless. Thank you very much for that. Thank you for that. I think it's 3 full marks. Thank you for that. And that's how we go about doing it. Now we take the last plural, dogs. Dogs.
Dog, I think is G is
yes.
voiceless.
Okay, ge, the ge sound. Ge. Is it voiceless or voiced? Ge.
I think so.
Okay, Mashori, I want to stay with you for a while. If you think that ge is voiceless, are you holding on to your just place your hand or your fingers on your vocal cords. All right? All of yeah, just place them there. You see that area where you have the esophagus?
Yes.
You see the esophagus right there. Then you hold to your vocal cord, not too tight. You want to feel when you say the sound ge. Do you feel vibration with your fingers?
G.
Ge. Say ge.
Yes.
Do you feel a vibration?
Yes.
Then if there is vibration, it means it's not voiceless, it is voiced.
Oh.
That is why, if you remember Koketso with stomach, she says ke. There's no vibration. Ke in stomach. Ke. There's no vibration. Therefore, stomachs. That is why stomachs. The s allomorph is not the same as z in dogs. So it is because of the difference in the sound that the words end in. In fact, if you check the k and you check the ge, there is a difference in terms of vibration of the vocal cords, and that and then that influences the sounding of the morpheme s at the end. If you are still with me, Mahlodi.
Yes.
And so therefore we cannot say the s morpheme affixed to doc or attached to doc at the end of the word doc is we cannot explain it as voiceless. Rather, the ge there, because is voiced. The ge sound is voiced. That is why even when you sound it, it sounds as a z, not as an s. Do you agree with me? Stomachs. Is the s in stomachs the same as in dogs? The sound of the s in stomachs and dogs, are they the same? The pronunciation? They are not. So the difference is in stomachs, it sounds as s. And what about dogs? The s in dogs, it sounds as what? Z. Do you see the difference? Yes. Therefore, why do you have that difference? It's because the ke is voiceless in stomachs and the ge is voiced in dog. Do you see? And then it influences the pronunciation of the plural s in dogs. That is why it sounds as a z, not as an s, like in stomachs. Do you see the difference?
Yes.
Good, Mashwedi. I think we are doing very well. And of course, we set the type of, by the way, what is the type of morpheme? What type of morpheme is that? What type of morpheme is docs?
Is allo.
What type of morpheme? When you are asked about type of morpheme, is it past tense? Is it possessive? Is it plural? That's the type of morpheme that
it's a plural. It's a plural.
It's a plural. You get a mark for that as well. You see, when you identify the morpheme as plural, that's good. When you identify it as voiceless, influencing it to a z sound, it's a mark for that as well. Okay? And when you write out the actual allomorph, you write it down. If it's an S, you write S, right? And you are getting a mark for doing that as well. So you are getting quite a lot of marks for doing different things in explaining the allomorph itself. So thank you for that, Mahlodi, much appreciated. I'm going to then move out of the plurals and quickly.
You're welcome.
Pardon?
You're welcome.
Thanks, Mahlodi. Thanks for that. Okay, let's go to the next one, which is possessives. Let's work with Allison's coat and cat's foot. Why the difference there? Could we get some students to participate? First, let's start with volunteers. Ellison's code, explain the allomorphs there and the type of morpheme, and also yes, you may just sound it. Is it z or s, or depending on how you would sound it, that would form the part on allomorphs, because you have not, I'm not able to see what you would type, but I can hear the sounding of it. So that will tell me if you've actually pronounced it in the way that it shows that it has been influenced in this way by the consonant sound that the word ends in. Like Ellison, the consonant sound there is N, which is N. Okay, so the first thing you do is to go for the vocal cords. Is there vibration or no vibration? That now works in your favor regarding explaining whether it is voiced or voiceless. And if it's voiced, then thus you get this result. You get this allomorph. If it's voiced, you get that allomorph. If it's a fricative, you get this allomorph, etc. Oh yes, Justin, please.
Yes. To answer the question, I was just thinking Allison's code. Would that be then voiced?
Okay. Why do you say the why do you say it's voiced?
Because it ends in an N.
Okay, good. And thus it then leads to which allomorph? I want you to sound the allomorph.
Would it be the Z? So like Allison's.
Allison's.
Z, yeah.
Allison's. Yes, Allison's. Yes.
Yeah.
That's correct. Because of the ending there, which is the consonant sound that gives vibration when articulated. Thank you. Those are the three aspects covered. Type of morpheme, by the way, the type of morpheme, did you identify that?
The possessive.
Possessive.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's a possessive. Exactly what I'm looking for. And I'll quickly then go to the third person singular. I think that's the last one. Right, let's quickly get to third person. Pleases her, takes it. Anyone? Any volunteers, please, students? Okay, Rebecca.
I see. Yeah, I see it as a voiceless.
Okay, what's voice?
Because takes.
Are you working with
it
takes
has
or
takes? I'm working on takes.
okay?
Takes has a voiceless because the nouns has the
Good.
sounds.
So it's a voiceless stop. Thank you for that. It's the okay, it's a voiceless stop. That's
Yes.
and what allomorph did you identify? Which allomorph? Is it is?
It's an is.
Is takes. Is it or is or z? Which allomorph?
It's an is.
Is
S.
Is an S, which is ne? Like takes. Okay, correct. Good. And type of morpheme?
It is a plural allomorphs.
Type
No,
of
it's a it's a possessive.
Take it is a possessive. No. You know why? Because we don't see that little apostrophe before the S. See that apostrophe? If you look at takes, there's no apostrophe there. Therefore, it is not a possessive. It doesn't show possession.
Oh,
You notice?
yes, I now notice it.
Oh, good. So it's a third person singular verb. Take. Because all third person singulars, they have the S ending. Eh?
Oh,
Yes.
yes.
Third person singular. Yes. Okay, and then finally, you may mute this redistribution. And I find that what else? Yes. So I have those two. Any of the two. Any volunteers. Rebecca, you may mute your mic.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
I'll go with pleases hair.
Which one?
Pleases hair.
Please. Okay, yes, I see. Okay, that is the third person singular. Yes, explain.
Yes, I think it will have IZ
Allomorph.
allomorph.
Good. That's one mark.
Because
Go on.
because it possessive an affricative or sibilant sound.
Okay. Oh, I see. It's a fricative. It ends in a fricative. Is it?
Yes.
Is it? It's
Yes.
not, but z, isn't it? Z, please. Please.
It pleases.
Pleases. Yeah. So it ends in a fricative. Z.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. And what else?
And it's a third person singular. Morphine.
It's a third person singular. Definitely. So you have 3 full marks for doing exactly that. Thank you for that. It's absolutely correct. Okay, let's stop there. Anyway, what does this mean? It really means to me that I am done.